Hello everyone, just wanting to cover tonight square foot gardening, the loss of one of our ducks, and how Venezuela has returned to faith. Church attendance is up down there, so they are seeking solace from their suffering in ways of church. So I'm going to cover that here shortly. So hold on to your seats as we cover these topics. Hello everyone. Alright, just want to cover this a little bit with some square foot gardening. Is square foot gardening the new freedom garden? That's really the question, because people in places like Venezuela, Guatemala, other places around the world, they're seeking a way to improve their crops. Here in America, we need to do the same thing. So square foot gardening for those in city limits is the way to do it. Hey, Sergeant. So, with that, I'm going to give you a moment of Mel Bartholomew, the inventor of square foot gardening, and also he's championing it overseas as square meter gardening. So, here we go. I'm going to play you a video and you can catch some of this. Check it out.
Hi, I'm Mel Bartholomew.
So this is Mel. He's the guy that came up with square foot gardening. Cool part is that you see the beds that he's showing. Those are just square foot. You can do 3 foot, you can do 4 foot. It just depends on how much yard space you have available to you. So let's continue on with the intro that he's leading us through.
Your whole community, and now we have the possibility of solving the world hunger problems with square meter gardening, converted from square foot gardening. Well, now what is square foot gardening? Well, we build in boxes 4 feet by 4 feet.
So with that, I've actually built some of these. I built 2 of them. One I have actually put together. What it takes is it takes 3 components to make the soil: vermiculite, and you're providing sphagnum moss as well as manure. And once you combine all these things, you have a soil that will fulfill an area like that. He's recommending that for kids you do a 3 by 3 foot square so it's manageable for them, and you do a 4 by 4 square for adults. So let's watch a little more of the video.
We put them above ground. You don't even have to dig up your existing soil. We fill that box with a perfect soil mix, add a grid, and you're ready to plant. It's that easy. In fact, you can grow 100% of the harvest compared to regular single row gardening with only 50% of the cost and 20% of the space. And then 10% of the water and 5% of the seeds and only 2% of the work.
So see what he's doing there? He's laying it out that it's a whole lot easier to accomplish this kind of gardening. The weeding is minimal because there's not much space for the weeds to grow. The maintenance, you're not stepping over your garden. You're not stepping in the middle of plants. It's a much easier process. And he's right. It is 50% of the cost. It's a couple of 2 by 6s. It's some spacers to provide the grid pattern. It's the sphagnum moss, the vermiculite, and the manure. That's really all it is. So let's watch a little bit more.
It's all that easy. Now, this system is a very condensed, natural, organic method that anyone can do from 4 to 94. Now, if you're a beginner, you can learn the whole system in about 1 hour. Now, I have to tell you, I'm not a horticulturist. I'm a civil engineer. And I started gardening and invented this method because I was so frustrated with.
Well, and the thing, Sergeant, about that is some things grow in certain places. And what he also created was almost a greenhouse effect down there to where you can actually keep the moisture in, because what he did was a he put plastic over the top of it to keep the moisture in. So it's more of a greenhouse than it is a square foot garden. And like you said, there's not a lot of water down there, but there are some plants that are adaptable to that hot weather. So let's watch a little more of this video.
All the wasteful methods of single row gardening. The original book became the largest selling garden book in America, over 1 million copies sold. And the TV show, Square Foot Gardening, went on national PBS, Discovery Network, and the Learning Channel. The big news now is that I've made so many new major improvements to the Square.
So look at that. With that, he's provided additional concepts. My desire is this should be America's new freedom garden. People aren't growing their own food, and they should be. Grocery stores have barely 3 days of food on the shelves. And the minute something happens, that 3 days of food is going to disappear in less than 24 hours. We've witnessed it. We've had power outages. We've had snowstorms recently that people went to the grocery store and they cleared out the shelves because they waited till the last minute. Now, don't get me wrong. A square foot garden isn't going to necessarily survive a major storm. However, if you've put all that food away for winter, canning and what have you, vacuum sealing, all that, you have a better chance of surviving, knowing that you grew these things in a natural environment without chemicals, and you even created the soil from scratch. So let's watch a little more.
Gardening system that I've come out of retirement, written an all new book, and started a nonprofit foundation just to take gardening all over the world and help everyone that would like to become a little more self sufficient and a little healthier. First, it starts right in your family. If you have a family garden, don't make the kids go out and do a lot of weeding. Start with everyone has their own box. Kids are 3 by.
And that's what I was talking about. 3x3 for kids, 4x4 for adults. And you got a good point, Sergeant. You got to put a fence around it to protect it from the animals, from deer, from birds, what have you. You got to put a fence around it to protect it. Without protecting it, you will not have much of a garden to appreciate. All right, let's turn that down a little bit. All right, so let's continue on with the video.
By 3, adults are 4 by 4. And you'll have a wonderful family project. In schools, we've developed a program so the teacher can teach every single subject around a square foot garden. Just think how much fun that is for the kids. Kids love to garden. And the last but not least is all over the world. I mentioned we converted this to square meter gardening, and our foundation is dedicated to taking this program to teach everyone in third world countries how they can have a square meter garden.
And he makes a really good point. Why is it that third world countries will be the ones taking the lead on this? This was America's thing. We were the breadbasket for the world. And why aren't we doing that now? Why aren't we providing for ourselves? Why are people fully dependent on grocery stores? It's an excellent question. Because gardening like this is not that difficult. Unless, like Sergeant, you live in Arizona and the weather's pretty harsh. So, let's watch a little more.
Right outside their back door. I hope you'll help me spread the word of square foot gardening all over the world. This is Mel Bartholomew wishing you happy gardening.
Now look at that. He's got like all the details. Everything you need to know. It's just an awesome experience. I built it myself and I was quite impressed with how it turned out. I have a full grid garden going on right now in my backyard. So moving on. The next subject is that my female duck was taken out by raccoons. It was unfortunate, and unfortunately I had to put her out of her misery, and that was not a pleasant experience. But knowing that there are raccoons in town is something that takes getting used to, because it's only been once, maybe twice in the past 2 years that we've had raccoon sightings in city limits. So I believe that that was totally a fluke that the raccoons made their way into town and terrorized the animals. So that's what happened to our female duck. And, well, we have additional chickens that are growing in the garage. So we're adding to our flock. So with that, moving on to the topic of Venezuela. I read in an article recently that Venezuela is turning to faith because the suffering down there has gotten severe. The power outages are consistent. The food shortages are real. They have gotten to the point where they don't know where their next meal is coming from, and if the bread man doesn't have bread, then you don't get to buy bread that day. And water, without the electricity, water is scarce and it's not clean. So many people are turning to the churches for handouts when they have them. They're also turning to the churches because that's where they're finding the opportunity to go sing in church, and serve others, even though they have the opportunity to get food themselves. That's the opportunity for them to at least take time out away from the suffering they have at home. As well as some of the ministers have the occasional additional things that people have that have a little bit more are donating to those that have a little bit less. Sergeant, I understand that you don't believe that God will fill your belly. However, down there, that's how they're making it. Is through the faith that they have. Because without that faith, many of them are not able to survive on a daily basis. But, oh, absolutely. And many of the ministers believe that with that faith, they are going to overcome the government eventually down there. Because of their passion, because of their desire to do better. And it's with that desire that they will eventually band together and do what they need to do. it's no different because they need their faith to get their country back on track. That's what they needed. They needed to experience pain before they can realize that they need to fight for their country, fight for their freedom, fight for their ability to use their faith as they see fit, use their skills and abilities as they see fit, not the way the government has decided that's what they need to do. That's why we here in America shouldn't forget that our First Amendment is sacred, and our Second Amendment, as we give it away little by little, is not going to preserve our country unless we're willing to stand up and fight against it and push back on our representatives and our senators and say, no, we will not allow you to give away our country. You have to hand it to Trump. He is definitely not going down without a fight. He's willing to ship all those illegals to sanctuary cities. You gotta hand it to him. That's not necessarily a bad plan. That would give the Democrats a taste of their own medicine. So with that, we need to keep an eye on our country. Oh, I know. AR will save us. Sergeant, the only way that works is if all of us band together and don't let others go down without a fight. So, maintain your judicious marksmanship. Make sure you practice. Make sure you maintain your garden. Prep it, weed it, keep it healthy, and put that food away for winter and for that rainy day. Also, make sure you're practicing your Second Amendment by carrying as the law allows, concealed carrying, and practicing those tactics. Also, making sure that you're practicing your First Amendment right by reaching out to those representatives and calling their switchboard and letting them know that guess what? We're not going to lay down and let things go without a fight. Because elections have consequences, as we continue to hear. And if we don't enforce that, then we will lose it. And I don't see us becoming Venezuela without a whole lot of activity from those of us that still care about this country. So, make sure that you continue to seek out those that have the same views, those, and even have that conversation with those you disagree with. It's silence that will kill us. So, take care of yourselves, take care of each other. Of course, it's just you and me. We got to stand up for each other. And that's all I have. Have a good night.